So we have the ham slices, candied carrots, we have our green bean casserole, scalloped potatoes, creamy mac and cheese, dinner rolls, deviled eggs, and a whole pineapple upside down cake. And we were able to make this entire feast of a meal for under $25 from Dollar General. Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. My name is Rebecca and today we're making the first Christmas dinner of the season. I say first because in November I made not one, not two, but 3 different Thanksgiving dinners, different price points. So I did the $10 microwave only Thanksgiving dinner, I did a $20 Dollar Tree Thanksgiving dinner, and I did a $75 made from scratch Dollar Tree Thanksgiving dinner. Today we're doing a Dollar General Christmas dinner because Dollar General might be more accessible to some than Dollar Tree, and I spent $25 on the ingredients to make this dinner. I think for $25 we're gonna have quite the feast, so I am very excited to get this started. Disclaimer, I am still a little bit sick, so if I sound congested, that is the reason. I've been having good days and I've been having bad days. Today is somewhere in between, but I'm going on a week of this cold and still every single day. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but we're gonna power through. Cooking motivates me, it inspires me, it makes me feel better. I definitely don't mind cooking when I'm a little under the weather. $25 at Dollar General, and I did use the $5 off a $25 purchase coupon because I did my shopping yesterday, which was Saturday, and I am putting this video out in time that there are 2 Saturdays between now and Christmas, so hopefully you can replicate this. Now, if you cannot get there on a Saturday, I do have some alternative options for making this under $25 without the coupon. But the other thing to mention is that I budget everything in beyond oil, salt, and pepper, and I even use those sparingly. So there's probably a pretty decent chance that some of the ingredients that I budgeted into this, you might already have. Things like mayonnaise, brown sugar, things like that. So if you already have those ingredients, there's probably a likelihood that you would be able to get this for under $25 with or without the coupon. I think that's enough for the intro. Let me show you what I got, talk about the prices of everything, and then we will jump right in. So first of all, here is my receipt. So I did my shopping yesterday, and as you can see, my total came out to $24.99. That included 25 cents in tax because I live in the state of Virginia and they charge a 1% sales tax. I could not have planned that better if I had tried, but again, that was after the $5 off coupon for Saturday. So first of all, we have the ham, and I had to try a few different ham options in order to figure out which ham I wanted to use for my Dollar General Christmas dinner. I settled on this one, and I want to explain why. This was $3.50. They sell a ham steak. It's $4.25, I want to say, but it's only 8 ounces. So I want to make a dinner for at least 4 people, which means I would probably have to get 2 of those ham steaks, which would be around $9. Not a very good value. This was 12 ounces and it was $3.50, so that's 3 ounces a person. There is also canned ham, which is a perfectly fine option. It's $4.20 and it's 16 ounces. The only reason I didn't do the canned ham was because it's a chopped ham that's then formed into a loaf, whereas these ham slices are whole ham slices, and when I taste tested the chopped ham, canned ham versus this, I found that this was more closely identical to a spiral sliced ham, which makes sense because it's just a sliced ham. In my Dollar Tree Thanksgiving dinners, I would have definitely used turkey if turkey were an option, but unfortunately none of my Dollar Trees in this area have any sort of turkey, canned, deli, or otherwise, which is why both of my Thanksgiving dinners included ham, and I almost tried to go for a different option than this, but this was the best option that I had available at Dollar General. So I was trying not to do a deli ham, but we ended up doing deli ham. This is a lot thicker slice though. It's more like the thickness of bologna, so it's a little bit better than just your kind of thin sliced deli ham. That was a very long-winded explanation, but this was $3.50. I'm going to take you through not only what I bought, but the thought process behind everything because it's very important. We needed a glaze to make the ham. For that, I needed to buy brown sugar, which was $2. I also needed pineapple. This was also $2. They had a store brand that was $1.75, but I specifically wanted to get the sliced pineapple, and they did not have a store brand in the sliced pineapple. So I shelled out an extra 25 cents for the name brand version so I could have the slices, because if we already have brown sugar and we already have pineapple, then we might as well make a pineapple upside down cake for our dessert, which is why I needed the slices. The cake mix was $1.75. In order to make the cake though, we need eggs. Eggs were $2.50 a dozen. I also needed Dijon mustard to make the ham glaze. This was $1.50, and because I only need a few eggs to make the cake mix, and I already have mustard, then I might as well get mayonnaise and turn the rest of the eggs into deviled eggs. The mayonnaise was $3.25. Another use for the brown sugar would be to make some glazed carrots. Now, Dollar General doesn't sell fresh carrots, nor do they sell frozen carrots, but they do sell canned carrots. I would have loved to get their store brand canned carrots, which would have been $1.34 for 2 cans. They were out of it, so I had to get the brand name canned carrots, which was $2 because they were $1 each. Green bean casserole, super easy. 2 cans of French style green beans. These were 67 cents a can, so this was $1.34. Cream of mushroom soup. To make the green bean casserole, this was $1. Fried onions were $2.75. They were a little bit out of our budget, so instead of fried onions, I got a bag of Funyuns. This was 50 cents. Instant mashed potatoes would have been $1.35, but this is a holiday dinner, so I thought we would do a little bit more festive and go with some scalloped potatoes. These were $2.15. A box of macaroni and cheese was 85 cents. And to make the potatoes and the macaroni and cheese, we needed milk and butter. Now, butter was $4.25 for a pound. Margarine was $1.50 for a pound. Also, milk, the standard milk in the fridge, was $2.70 for a half gallon, but we don't need that much, so we can get evaporated milk for $1.15, and this can be diluted down to make it regular milk, or you can leave it in its evaporated form to make your potatoes and your mac and cheese a little bit more rich and creamy. And this is the last item, and it's a bit of a splurge item, but I got some yeast dinner rolls. These were $3 from the frozen section. So that is the $25 haul, and I feel like we did a really good job with $25. And honestly, I really put a lot of thought and effort into making this menu, so I really hope that this dinner turns out. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I always like to start with the dessert because it can take a little while to bake and then usually cool or chill. So we're gonna start with our pineapple upside down cake. Now, I keep going back and forth on how I want to go about doing these because we don't have the cherries. So we don't have that really fun pop of like red color in the middle of each pineapple cake. So I found an image that I think looks really cool without the pineapples, which kind of looks like Spanish tile. This cake mix makes a 13 by 9 or 2 rounds. And then it says it makes 23 cupcakes, which is oddly specific. I do have a jumbo muffin tin if I wanted to make miniature versions of the pineapple upside down cake. I only have one, and I don't really want to do this twice. I think we're just gonna stick with a rectangle, just keep things simple. I'm one for an extra step or an added layer of security, so I'm gonna start by greasing my baking dish here with some cooking oil. I'm not sure how necessary it is since we do have like a layer of butter at the bottom, but just in case, especially the sides of the dish, I don't want my cake to stick. In goes a 1/4 cup of our margarine. This is the Imperial, and I melted it in the microwave, so it's about a half stick, along with a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to spread out the brown sugar in an even layer on the bottom. And now for our lovely little pineapples here. I need the juice for the ham, and I might use some of the juice for the cake too, depending on how much juice is actually in this can. Because I'm probably only gonna need like a half cup or so for the ham. Be cutting all of our little pineapple rings in half. So we have little semicircles. And those are going to get arranged. It looks like they filled in the gaps with some little quarter circles. So we can do that too. I think this is a cute design if you don't have cherries. Kind of doing a bit of a bricklaying pattern here. I like this design. I think this is really pretty. Kind of gives me like vintage cake vibes a little bit. I'm not sure why, but it definitely reminds me of like maybe like a cake from like the 40s or something like that. I'm gonna do all of the semicircles real quick. And then we can fill in the gaps. And this is the perfect amount of pineapple for this design. How lovely is that? All right, there's our pattern. Let's set that aside and make our cake mix. I'm going to be reserving about a half cup of this pineapple juice for the ham glaze, and the rest of this I can use in place of some of the water in my cake mix. I chose to use white cake mix because I like it better than yellow cake mix, but of course you can definitely use the yellow here instead. It's the same price. I just really like white cake mix. I'm not really sure if there's a flavor difference. I would say that the white is more vanilla-y and the yellow is more buttery, and so that's why I tend to go with white. So we'll start with the water. So like I said, I'm going to be using the pineapple juice in place of some of the water, which it looks like I have about a half cup of pineapple juice left. So we can do a half cup of water, half cup of oil, and you can also instead use the margarine here if you prefer. I'm not using the margarine because it is a little on the salty side, and I think that the oil is more neutral. It's interesting that this cake mix calls for either 3 whole eggs or 3 egg whites. Typically it would be 4 egg whites or 3 whole eggs because the volume of an egg white and an egg are not the same. We can then kind of somewhat delicately pour over our pineapple and brown sugar mixture. We are going to be baking this at 350 for 40 to 45 minutes. And y'all can be upset by this all you want, but for me, the batter is definitely the best part. I've said it before that I'm not a big fan of chocolate, and that has been my entire life. As a kid, my birthday cakes that I wanted every year was just a plain white cake with plain vanilla buttercream. I didn't like chocolate cake, I didn't like chocolate ice cream, and I liked my cake with vanilla ice cream. So I am definitely a vanilla reigns supreme kind of person. While the cake is baking, I'm going to get started on the deviled eggs, and I will tell you that I struggled a lot with hard-boiled eggs, not necessarily boiling them. Obviously, you can just boil eggs, but an easy peel method of hard-boiled eggs. It's been close to 10 years since I discovered the hot start method of boiling eggs, where you actually start them in almost boiling water, and then after they're done cooking, put them in an ice bath. And I found this out through a channel called High-Low Cooking back in the day. And I have done it ever since. It has worked perfectly for me ever since. You don't have to crack the egg, you don't have to shake the egg, no baking soda, no kind of hacks needed. It's just a hard-boiled egg, but instead of starting it in cold water, you start it in hot water. So I have a pot of water here, about 2 to 3 inches of water, and I've started to heat this up to medium high-ish. We're not gonna bring this up to a full boil. We just wanna start to see some kind of bubbles in the water, and that's when we're gonna add our eggs. This is pretty much exactly what we're going for. You see all of these little bubbles. It's starting to come to a boil, but it's not fully boiling yet. And the importance there is that the eggs are cold, and we are going to drop them directly in. If the water is fully boiling, you do run the risk of your eggs cracking as you add them to the water. But if it is at this state where it's almost boiling but not quite, I find that there is very little to no risk of cracking. Slotted spoon, carefully dropping in your eggs because the water is hot. And now this can come up to a full boil. As soon as you're at a full boil, like we are here, cover it, lower it as low as it'll go. Set yourself a 12-minute timer. As soon as your 12 minutes is up, transfer your eggs directly from the pot into an ice bath. So everything about this is the same as just making regular hard-boiled eggs. The only difference is, I promise you, starting them in hot water versus cold water will make them easy to peel every single time. The cake is still baking, but we can go ahead and prep some of the casseroles to go in the oven as soon as the cake is done, because we're gonna have to up the temperature a little bit. So let's go ahead and start with the potatoes, the scalloped potatoes. I'm generally a big fan of not following the instructions on the boxes because I find them, for the most part, to be wrong, especially in the case of like things like these potatoes, which are cornstarch based, and it says to mix the packet in boiling water, which cornstarch and hot water are not friends. They do not get along at all. So what we can do instead is use cold water, 1.5 cups. And I'm going to be using my evaporated milk, but I'm not going to be diluting it. I'm going to be using it straight, so a 1/2 cup of evaporated milk. And before we even heat anything up, I'm going to add in the seasoning packet. And because all of these ingredients right now are cold, the seasoning packet will just melt right in and not be clumpy. 1 tablespoon of our margarine, and then I'm going to let this heat up to a boil over like medium-high heat-ish. It also doesn't specify to grease the baking dish, but I feel like that is kind of an important step unless you like scrubbing potatoes off of your baking dishes. Really fun hobby, I feel like, scrubbing burnt food off of dishes. It's time to check on our upside down cake, which, ooh, steamy. Which looks pretty done to me. I'm pretty sure that it's done. I'll double check it just to be certain. Oh yeah, totally done. Pop that out and let it cool. We're gonna amp up the oven temperature. The potatoes say 450, but I feel like that's excessive. I'm gonna do 400 because I'm gonna be baking things like the ham and the green bean casserole too. Our little sauce mixture is heated through, so I'm going to pour that over top of our potatoes, making sure that they are all submerged. And toss that in the oven. I will probably bake it for around 35 to 40 minutes or so. We also need to invert our pineapple upside down cake. I'm going to run a knife around the edges to make sure nothing's sticking. And you do want to do this while the cake is still hot. So you take it out of the oven, let it cool just for like 5 minutes or so. It's not sticking at all, so we're fine. I'm gonna use a cookie sheet or sheet pan. This is really the only thing I have that will fit on top of this casserole dish. Flip it upside down, and it just came right out. I'll let this sit for a couple minutes to make sure all that caramely goodness, actually, I'm gonna center it slightly. I wish I had something prettier to serve this on. What do you guys serve your pineapple upside down cake on? Just a sheet pan like this or something a little bit more formal? I don't know. Maybe I'll hit up some thrift stores and try and get some servingware at some point. So trying to be careful here. As long as I can get my little oven mitt under one side, I should be able to, there we go. Lift it off. And there we go. Whew. As you can see, I don't make many pineapple upside down cakes. And that's the pattern on top there. I think that that looks super cute, especially without the cherries. This is a really fun way to do it. I'm gonna let that sit aside and cool until dinner is ready. I think next up we're gonna prep the green bean casserole so that can get popped in the oven next to the potatoes. I'm gonna make it and mix it all in the baking dish just to save on a bowl. 2 cans of French style green beans, which have been drained, and 1 whole can of cream of mushroom soup. I know there are several variations of this, and I know that the original recipe as it was created has soy sauce in it. Feel free to add soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, anything you have. I tend to keep it really simple, just the green beans, the cream of mushroom soup. And again, those things are not necessarily in the $25 budget. So if you have it, add it. When sticking with the budget, sometimes you have to leave certain things out. Which is why I'm not using fried onions, but instead using Funyuns as my green bean casserole topping. But I'm not gonna add those on just yet. I'm gonna let this bake in the oven for a little while, let it get heated through, and then I will add the onions closer to the end so they don't burn. Just gonna toss that in right alongside the potatoes. Next up, I'm gonna be working on the glaze for the ham. So that is where that pineapple juice that I set aside comes into play, about a half a cup. To the pineapple juice, I'm gonna add 2 to 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And a tablespoon of the Dijon mustard. Not really doing much here. I'm just gonna let this kind of come up to a boil and slightly thicken up. We don't have a whole lot of glaze here because I wanted to use some of the pineapple juice for the upside down cake, but also we don't have a ton of ham. We only have 12 ounces of ham, so I feel like this will be enough glaze. I'm gonna add in 1 more tablespoon of brown sugar, so it's gonna be a 1/4 cup of brown sugar total. I mostly want the pineapple flavor to come through, which is why I'm trying not to add a bunch of brown sugar to it because I still want to have that pineapple flavor. Give it a taste and make sure you're happy with the sweetness. Kind of doing the same trick where I run the spoon through it and just see, you know, we are leaving some lines in it, so it definitely is pretty much where it needs to be, but you can see the edges here still pretty runny. What's in the center is very thick. That looks pretty good to me. So I think for the ham, I'm not really quite sure what I want to do with the ham because I do try to present it in a really nice way whenever I can. This is a little bit thicker than like standard deli ham, more of like the textured bologna as I mentioned earlier, but it's not quite as thick as I want it to be. I think that this would be the perfect substitution for a spiral ham if it was just the thickness of 2 slices instead of 1 or maybe even 3. So that's kind of what I'm thinking as far as making this ham, is that I want to leave, rather than individual slices, I kind of want it to be thicker chunks, about 2 slices thick. So I'm not going to separate those just yet. I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to be pulling it apart in 2 slices. So we have double the thickness, but leaving them together. And kind of, I think when I put them in the baking dish, I'm going to kind of layer them like this. See if we can make that work. So there's our 6 little bits of ham. Let's do the same on the other side. Now we can drizzle our glaze right over top of that. And I'm sure you can guess where that is going to go next. Right in with the potatoes and the green bean casserole. Let's start on the macaroni and cheese, shall we? I'm going to do my no drain macaroni. So into the pot, the whole box of noodles, along with 1.5 cups of water. I'm going to also do a 1/2 cup of the evaporated milk, 2 tablespoons of margarine, and the cheese powder packet. This all goes in at the same time while the oven is cold, not turned on. And now we are going to give it a stir and turn the heat on to medium-high. It's going to look clumpy, but as it heats up, the sauce will like melt and come together. Give it a stir every once in a while to make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom. And I didn't forget, I think I was going to try to add a little bit of Dijon mustard to this because a lot of you guys say that you add a little bit of mustard or mustard powder to your mac and cheese. So I'm going to give that a try this time around. It's supposed to enhance the flavors of the cheese sauce. And I've never done it with boxed mac and cheese before. This is gonna come up to a boil, and then I'm gonna reduce the heat to low and let it simmer for 8 minutes, stirring every once in a while. But I did almost forget that we still have to finish up our deviled eggs, so I'm gonna get those going real quick. Now let me show you how easy these are to peel with the hot start method. I don't even have to run them under water or anything. No sticking, no gimmicks. You don't have to use new eggs, old eggs. There's so many different variations on how to make eggs easy peel. This is the method that has consistently always worked for me. Last egg. After I peel them, I just kind of toss them back in the ice bath just to get off any little remnants of shell or the little membrane or anything like that. I'm keeping an eye on my mac and cheese in the meantime, giving it a stir every once in a while, make sure it's not sticking. Got perfectly cooked yolks. They're not gray on the outside. And if anyone out there is thinking that 18 deviled eggs is too many deviled eggs, you can never have too many deviled eggs. I'm convinced of it. I watched a video the other day. I was talking about egg math, and it was basically like how many eggs you can eat before you get sick of eating eggs. You know, scrambled eggs was like 4 to 6, an omelet also 4 to 6, hard-boiled eggs 1 to 2, but deviled eggs, unlimited deviled eggs. Can't get sick of eating deviled eggs. I don't know what it is, because it is essentially all of the same ingredients that go in egg salad, just prepared in a slightly different manner. Need to check on the things that are in the oven because I'm pretty sure the potatoes are done at this point. Definitely. The ham is looking good, and I think we can add our topping onto our green bean casserole. Trying to, of course, juggle around a few things. I definitely should have done the deviled eggs earlier. I'm gonna crush these before I put them on top. It's not a very big bag, so it should just kind of be barely enough. Last night we came upstairs from watching a movie and Michael saw these on the counter and he was like, "Ooh, Funyuns." I was like, "Oh no, I need those for my Christmas dinner." Toss that back in the oven. Trying to get these deviled eggs finished up. I'm gonna mash the yolks. We're gonna go in with some mayonnaise. I always just eyeball it. I don't really have exact measurements for anything, but I usually do, however much mayonnaise I do about half as much of that in mustard. Dijon's a little bit more mild than yellow mustard, so just adjust it to your own tastes. I can already tell that that's a little dry, so I'm gonna add a little bit more mayonnaise. And a little bit more mustard. The only other thing to add is salt and pepper to taste. And when I say to taste, I literally do mean taste it, adjust it. Start a little bit at a time. Make sure you don't over salt it, because if you over salt it, there is no going back from that. And I have accidentally ruined deviled eggs before by adding too much salt to them. Now, one kind of fix if you add too much salt is to potentially add a little bit more mayonnaise, but it will throw off your consistency. Still a little dry and needs a little bit more seasoning. So a little bit more mayonnaise, half as much mustard. Definitely gonna add a little bit more pepper. And I like to add salt kind of by the pinch. And that looks like a beautiful consistency. Perfect. Then we have to transfer the mixture into a bag for piping. You can make the deviled eggs in advance. I probably should have, but that is okay, because pretty much everything else at this point is almost done. I still gotta throw the rolls in the oven. Those are pre-baked, and then the carrots are only gonna take 5 minutes. but then our dinner is ready to serve. Time to fill our deviled eggs. And pop those babies in the fridge for a minute. So as I mentioned, the dinner rolls are pre-cooked, just bake and serve. So it says that you can remove them from the bag, brush with butter, and then bake for 5 to 10 minutes. I was thinking that they might go in here. I'm not sure if they will fit. No, okay. Let's go with a sheet pan then. I think there's 6 rolls in here, yeah. I melted myself a little bit of that margarine and I'm gonna brush the top of the rolls with it. And at this point, I'm also gonna go ahead and pull out the ham and the green bean casserole and let those cool a bit. Toss our dinner rolls in for the 5 or so minutes. And while the rolls heat up, the last thing we're gonna do is candy our carrots. To this, I'm gonna add about half a stick of margarine and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Trying to put this brown sugar to good use today. You can also add things like salt, pepper, cinnamon, things like that, but I don't have cinnamon, so we're just gonna use the brown sugar and the margarine. And because the margarine already has salt in it, I will not be adding any salt to this. I'll let that all melt together. All right. Once that's nice and bubbling, I am gonna add in my 2 cans of drained carrots. And just give them a toss to coat in that brown sugar butter mixture. And you let these cook for about 3 to 5 minutes or so to kind of candy the carrots. I transferred the ham slices onto a plate, kind of this pattern here. I think that that looks a little bit nicer than they did in the baking dish. I'm gonna pour the rest of that glaze over top of them. I like to show you guys ways to make inexpensive food look and present in a more elegant manner whenever I can. So we have the ham slices, candied carrots, we have our green bean casserole, scalloped potatoes, creamy mac and cheese, dinner rolls, deviled eggs, and a whole pineapple upside down cake. And we were able to make this entire feast of a meal for under $25 from Dollar General. I think it's time to fix ourselves a plate. What do you guys think? And that is our Christmas dinner plate. But of course we have dessert and we have appetizers because we have the deviled eggs too. So I definitely had a feeling going into this that this would be quite the feast of a meal whenever it was done, and I am really truly proud of being able to make this much food for under $25. Like, I feel like this is definitely a menu that you guys could recreate at home really easily, not spend a bunch of money, but still feed a lot of people and make sure your family goes to bed happy and full. What should we start with? Actually, we should start with the appetizer. Deviled eggs, absolutely. Don't mind if I do. Around Easter, I did a $20 Walmart Easter dinner, and one of the things I did for the deviled eggs was I used Greek yogurt in place of mayonnaise because Greek yogurt was cheaper. I prefer these deviled eggs over the ones I made to Easter by far. The Dijon mustard's a really nice touch. Those are fantastic. All right, now what to start with here, let's go with the candied carrots because that's something I don't make very often, is any sort of carrots or brown sugar carrots. If you're not big on canned carrots, this is a really great way to elevate them and turn them into something a little bit better. They're nice and sweet. They're not crunchy. They're not like candied or anything like that. I feel like if I had taken the time to dry the carrots or maybe even dry roast them in the oven or something like that, they might have had a little bit more texture to them, but they are just sweet carrots. I made green bean casserole with Funyuns as a topping, so we're gonna see how that is. Flavor-wise, it tastes just like green bean casserole. Texturally, it's a little bit unique because the Funyuns are more airy, kind of like a Cheeto type of texture. I'm sure you've had Funyuns before, but as you can imagine, it is a slightly different texture than green bean casserole, but it tastes just like green bean casserole. Let's do scalloped potatoes next. So far, that's my favorite part by far. And I had tried the mac and cheese. It is a little bit more gummy because I didn't dilute the evaporated milk. So I had to pause that taste test for a minute because my microphone died, but we are back. I think the last thing I tried was the macaroni and cheese. And as I mentioned, the macaroni and cheese is not the greatest this time around because I should have diluted the evaporated milk. It ended up a little thick and a little starchy, unlike usual, and it could be this macaroni and cheese. I've never tried it with this method before, so there's a possibility, but I am going to contribute it to the evaporated milk and the way that I prepared it. But I think that if I had diluted the evaporated milk, it would have been totally fine. And now we can try our honey glazed ham. Doubling up on the slices was a good call because it made them the perfect consistency to kind of replicate that spiral sliced ham. You could even leave them in sets of 3 if you wanted them even thicker, but it's great. Has a nice pineapple flavor to it. A great Dollar General version of a Christmas ham. Can't buy a spiral ham at Dollar General. This is a good way to replicate that same experience. I get some margarine to spread on my dinner roll here. I like that these are yeast rolls, at least my Dollar General. You cannot buy yeast. If I could buy yeast, I might have tried to make like a homemade roll. Probably try to work in some all-purpose flour or something like that, but can't buy it at my Dollar General. And mine are a little cold because my mic died, so I had to set everything aside for a minute. But I'm gonna warm this back up a smidge, maybe in the microwave for a couple seconds or in the toaster oven. Those would be super great with like a sweet butter, like a honey butter. They are really good. They're nice and light and fluffy, have a beautiful yeasty flavor to them. They kind of remind me a lot of dinner rolls that I get at like Golden Corral. And that's why I say I think they'd be really good with honey butter, because that's my favorite part about Golden Corral is their honey butter spread. And there is a slice already missing off of this pineapple upside down cake. That is because I gave Michael a slice. He has actually tried everything as well. He's not super savvy about being on camera, so I usually don't have him taste test things on camera. But he said that this was one of the most delicious cakes that he had ever had. And he doesn't even like cake. That was his words, not mine. And I am going to try a slice and see what I think as well, but I do think that looks so spongy. I'm not even going to dirty a plate. I'm just going to eat it straight. It'll be fine. Do I need an entire sheet of pineapple upside down cake? Probably not, but I can assure you it will get eaten. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the crust piece because he said that that was so good because it's like really crispy. I definitely don't want to stop eating that. This cake is superb. Honestly, it might be the best part of this entire meal, and I'm okay with that. My goal every time I make one of these holiday dinners is to one-up the previous one. It's really hard to one-up the Dollar Tree made from scratch Christmas dinner that I did, but I think that this is a really great Christmas dinner for only $25. We have an insane variety of things. I think that having things like dinner rolls and cake, and you know, you could leave out the mac and cheese or something like that because that was kind of my least favorite part of the whole meal was definitely mac and cheese, but that was my fault, totally my fault. I should have diluted the evaporated milk, and that's okay. Live and learn. The Funyuns as green bean casserole was decent. It is an acceptable substitute for fried onions. I feel like texturally it's a little bit different, but otherwise the entire meal was incredibly delicious, very filling, and I know that it's going to make someone out there very happy this holiday season. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon.